Hello. So I have been waiting to share my interviews from Banff, from Engage, back in June. And today I am sitting down with Rebecca Ickes Berg of Rebecca Marie Photography. She's based out of Chicago, but she shoots pretty much internationally and everywhere. She recently got married in April, and I wanted to sit down and talk to her about the way her perspective has changed now that she went through that process recently. I think a lot of times we can get into the flow of just working with customers and checking it off our list and forgetting to have empathy with our brides and our grooms, as well as understanding what this whole process means for them. We talk a little bit more in depth, and I think it gives good perspective to just reset the way we talk and speak to our couples. Little details go a huge way in making such an awesome experience for them at the end of it. So we'll enjoy all of her tips. She is a phenomenal photographer and powerful woman and has a great story to share. Go check it out.
Huzzah! Cheers.
This is so wonderful.
I'm so glad we're doing this.
I will say this is like the most extravagant.
Right? I feel like
yet.
I've arrived. I've
arrived. I think there's just the main thing about Banff for me so far is like it is unworldly because it literally is like there's no perspective on spatial anything like
one scale. Pure
It's
scale.
vast.
I also really like that. I feel like I should have done an intro with a little jazz scat. Like,
Dun, dun,
welcome to
dun.
Engage. Hello.
And I love that
My
we're also
name's-
matching because we're here at Engage
Right.
in Banff. Floral day. We did not plan this, but
you've
it's
got the
actually
booties.
perfect. I've got the boots. You've got the top.
Kimono situation.
And we've got rosé. Okay.
all the crucial things. Mostly being the rosé.
I mean, we've been talking about doing this for a long time, but I feel like I actually can't remember when we originally met. Do you remember? Would
was
it have
thinking
been an
about that.
Engage or
So I'm
a
sure we
Dallas
were.
group birthday party project?
I'm sure
Probably.
that we were at the same engages, and so there was a recognition. But I think the true, like what I would consider like the true like connection, at some point in Dallas in the past 2 years.
I'm sure. So
Water with grapes.
Yes. So you've had a momentous, crazy 6 months.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot to talk about
We do.
because not only are you a new married woman,
Yeah.
you also got a beautiful little puppy.
I'm a fur mama.
It's life changing.
Oh my gosh, it's a little embarrassing actually.
Change of location is a little less sweaty.
Right? a little good.
Powder it up. It's
All right,
actually
everyone-
surprisingly June in Banff is much warmer. Where
Turns out.
But there's still snow in the mountains. But here we
Snow
are.
in the mountains and 80 degrees and sweaty in jeans.
Well, let's do an express of how your business, like how you started for photography.
Oh goodness.
Like, what was that journey? Did you plan for it? Did you stumble on it? I want to know.
Right.
Tell me.
Well, so the blunt answer is I definitely, it wasn't a plan. It wasn't a plan, which is funny because in hindsight, everything lines up. I came from a really big family and am really good at speaking loudly. I'm very good at family formals, like getting a big old group of people together and keeping everybody happy at the same time. You know, things that you never thought as career training, but your skill set just fits. So I started the company 8 years ago, which, you know, doing the math was 2010. Interesting time to start a business. But so as far as like kind of education path, I was an oboe performance major as an undergrad, super nerdy.
Okay.
Switched from that to graphic design to be a far more.
I feel like I knew that. I did know that. Yeah.
It's what my go-to for fun party facts. Yeah. So graphic design was what my bachelor's wound up in because that was supposed to be like the employable art, right? I thought I was doing like the safe thing, and then the market crashed. Nobody was hiring anybody for anything. And I lived in England for a year and worked with at-risk age 12-year-olds in an art center. And the beautiful thing about a country like England, much like Canada, is, you know, things like universal health care and things like that, people are more prone to start their own thing. Yeah. It's not quite as scary. And then the reason so I worked for a wedding photographer in college, and the time that I moved back from England was because I had told my cousin I would shoot their wedding. You know, they were having a very like low-key thing, whatever. And so I moved back, and in the process of moving back, I was applying for graphic design jobs, still trying to kind of figure it out. Shot their wedding and went, oh yeah, I have this skill set. And then at the time, so that was August of 2010, I was living with my parents. I happened to start working with this online gallery host that put on conferences.
Okay.
Hence my love of conferences. Because we wound up, I just one day told my parents that I was going to go to New Orleans for a photography conference. And I mean, thank God that I did it, because then, I mean, I scurried down, I came home with a business plan, but wasn't ever the plan. I can't imagine doing anything else though, because the beautiful thing about what we do as entrepreneurs is like, we get to be CFO, CMO, CEO, all the C's, every single day, a little bit every day. Like, it's constantly changing, and I just really could not imagine winding up sitting in a cubicle.
We've talked about your wedding a little bit and all the details and how you've evolved it. I'm curious, you know, obviously working on our businesses every day, and I think part of being a good business owner is creating patterns and routines and processes that sometimes can emotionally disconnect us from the couples that we work with.
Yeah.
And so I think I would be interested to hear how, as a new bride, how that's changed the way that you work to be more connected to the couples and be more in their mindset as to what are the actual needs and desires and, you know. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to sound like nothing new, right? Because everybody has been preaching the millennial bride. They want it now. They want it right away. You know, and I didn't have those expectations, right? But what did happen though was there's certain things that each of us have our own timeline.
Yep.
As a vendor, we have our own timeline of like, I have these couples on these dates, so I need to do this work for them at this time. That doesn't mean their timeline is the same.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's true.
So for us, still losing my voice. For us, we had quite a long engagement. So Kevin proposed in July of 2016.
Okay.
And our wedding was April of 2018, because it was kind of one of those like, well, I could totally knock it out in 7-8 months. But with destination and wanting people to be able to
and not
save,
doing it during wedding season, and
it was either
there's no rush. Also, there's no rush,
right?
In any engagement,
like literally, being engaged is a transitional time. It's not going to be forever. So why make it that much faster? But with that, I'm so type A, and I could see the trajectory of. So we shot a wedding in Santorini in March of 2017, and from there we went over to Italy and did most of our planning, at least for on the ground planning. And I don't think I relayed clearly enough. Like, that was the only time we were going to be in Italy before the wedding. We weren't coming back for a tasting. Things I would now recommend to my brides, like, do plan to go back. And that's really hard for vendors, right? Because you're 13 months out. You're not planning. Our caterer was not anticipating setting the menu that day. So I was admittedly saying, I'm really, really early, and I know I sound like the crazy bride that we all talk about, but here's why. You know, like trying to explain, like, the reason is I have these weddings on this weekend, and like I knew what my upcoming schedule was.
But I think the funny thing is obviously you're busy in what you do, but it's also everyone is. Right. Like being self-aware that it's like everyone has their thing of why they maybe are like, and I think Michelle Rago yesterday was talking about like a little bit of empathy in that, and I think it is very challenging, but at the same time it's like, maybe it's medication, maybe it's like life changes, maybe it's things they don't want to talk about.
Your
maybe
aunt.
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of layers. Like there's a lot of layers. So yes,
it doesn't have to be the immediate response. I didn't need a text message response in 24 hours, but what we do need to do as vendors is communicate a very specific timeline as far as
expectations.
And not just like I'll get back to you next week. Because then as a bride, do you mean Monday of next week or Friday of next week? Because 5 days, if your mom is asking you about something, is an eternity.
Agree.
Right? So it's not just the millennial bride. It's kind of the other generation too, right? And so communicating very clear timelines of, by this date, this exact date, I will have it to you. And then presumably give it again to them
early.
2 days early.
Yeah.
But if I have an exact date, I know when it's going to come. It's off my conscious. I'm not waking up at 5 a.m. going, what about that, right? The really funny thing when Michelle was talking, or it's either Michelle or Mindy yesterday that was quoting some of the, it's 4 weeks before the wedding and they're questioning almost every decision. That's just normal now. I know that's just
I see that.
Right, because you're also mentally realizing you are making a big change in your life. Mm-hmm. Even though we were living together, even though technically we were already married legally, it was still, this is a big deal. And especially American culture, you know, it's put on such a pedestal and it's such a thing that like even though, I mean, I was very lucky to have known almost all of our vendors. I didn't have personal relationships with our venue, our caterer, because those are all local to Italy, obviously. But, you know, my planner, our florist, Keith with Jackson Durham, who I know from Engage, DJ Brian, who I know from Engage, Tiffany Wenchel was our invitations, who I also know from Engage. All of these people I had a relationship with that most brides wouldn't have. You know, like, I know how this works, and I still had that moment of, oh my gosh, and actually what's really funny is I forgot about the stuff for me, right? Yeah. Like, oh shoot, I need to make a nail appointment. Haircut and color, like you have to time that because you're going abroad and we're going to be there a week before the wedding, and should I do a no chip? Will it last? Or should I just paint them myself so that if something happens I can fix it?
Yeah. So do you feel like in terms of trust, I mean, you didn't, I mean, obviously even knowing these vendors as friends,
right?
Would you say that there would have been something that would have been pivotal in making you feel like you could delegate it? More? Like having that hands-on experience, was that was something that, you know what I mean, where you were like,
how could they have helped?
I wasn't expecting to feel this way because I thought that I trusted you, but I do trust you.
I think it is a bit of the being really clear on the, I will give you this by this date, like this exact date, not this month, not this general week. Like literally one thing I have always done, and now I know with a fervor that I will always do, is our couples know the date they see their photos before the wedding happens. The date.
Good.
Not the oh, it takes about 6 weeks, or oh, it takes 3 months-ish to edit your wedding photos. I'll email you. But it takes all the questions out.
Yeah.
This is the date we're going to see them.
Less correspondence, which is less stress on both parties.
Yep.
It's just there's expectations set, which I think is so
no questions asked. When mom asks, when are the photos going to be ready? When you show up to brunch the day after your wedding, you can put that date in her calendar. Nobody asks any more questions. Because how many photographers have you heard griping about, like, oh my gosh, their wedding happened 2 weeks ago and they're already emailing me. Hello, 2 weeks is an eternity.
Yeah.
Like, I know how long it takes to take photos, and the amount of refreshing on Mary Marantz's Instagram I did after our wedding, because I was like, are there any photos? Are there any photos? Are there any photos? Right? Like, I was a nutcase. Just because you're just so anxious in a great way. It's a great
post-wedding feelings.
Right? You're just like, I want to see. And so just being specific with, this is when we're going to do this. This is the date we're going to do that. You know, and repeating it, right? Because they're thinking about it at one point. We didn't actually write down and take notes that that's what you told me. So then when I'm thinking about it again 3 months later, you know, you can just reset, like, having a lot of touch points to say, like, write out your whole workflow process. After a client books, send it in the welcome package. Once you understand where a person is coming from, like if you don't realize that mom is emailing the bride asking about linens or letterpress or paper type or whatever, like presumably, with the exception of a few truly manic people, it's coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
They're nervous,
I've had
anxious.
firsthand experiences of that recently. I have a bride who is her whole career, she's been planning to be a newscaster and evening news. And then she works all day, does evening news.
Right.
And she's balancing a wedding, and she's had a couple of minor little breakdowns, let's just say, and I didn't know the whole circumstance.
Right.
And so when I was realizing, no wonder you can't get back to me until 8 p.m.
Right.
Then it was a matter of just communicating that, and then it was like, you don't need to be frustrated. I'm just going to adapt my schedule. My expectations are that you also will be only available from these times, and you know that I am going to come through on, whatever perspective that is.
And then I also think the other thing is us as vendors being proactive with letting them know what we can actually do for them.
Yeah.
And not in the setting boundaries kind of way, but in the sense of with our planner, Nicole, in the sense of that she was willing to communicate with all of my family, I even forgot, even though I'm a pro, I forgot the things that I could delegate.
Yeah.
And I know how this all works. So imagine a person who has never done this before as a professional or otherwise. They're not going to know. Like, we tell them all the time, we're here to help. Like, but how?
True.
You know? So it's also kind of figuring out how to communicate the fact that we can figure out how you can take on some of the work, because that's our job.
Well, this has been so fun.
Yay!
The weather has been epic.
Fantastic.
Too hot, actually, surprisingly.
Right?
Surprise.
Educational.
And we're about to go on Jordan Con's.
Jordan Con.
If you don't know,
Jordan
you're
Con.
Find out
You're gonna
some
need
way or
to.
another
Have
on
you
social.
done a Jordan?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, totally.
Obviously.
Yeah. There's always a boat every destination we go to. It's fantastic.
Only time in my life.
It was like I should have brought sunscreen.
Right, we do need to figure that out. But only time in my life the phrase, "Oh no, they mixed the Dom with the Cristal," ever comes out of my mouth.
Actually, me too. I'm like, oh, this Dom, I prefer Cristal. And
like
who
when
am
else do I say that? What world do I live in right now? Like, thanks, Jordan Con. Thank you, Jordan Con.
Thank you. Let's go party.
Fabulous.
Cool.
We lost our rosé. Clink.
Okay, so we are here in Banff. That is real life. That is not a green screen. All of that.
Photoshop.
Nothing. And I've been sitting down with Rebecca. Our interview's awesome, which you obviously heard. So much good information for refreshing how we should be in the life of the brides and have empathy. I think that's seriously something we should definitely take away from.
Maybe the title.
Empathy. Yep, I think so. So Rebecca, where can people find you? Oh, I am here. I'm in here, under deep ender. Where can people find you online?
People can find me online on the gram. Is that still the way the kids say it? I'm kidding. Oh. Instagram at Rebecca Marie Art. That is 1 B, 2 C's. Marie like the middle name and then A-R-T. Turns out there's a few Rebecca Marie photographies.
Oh. You're Rebecca Marie Art.
But we are at RebeccaMarie.com.
All the info in the bio, show notes, find it. And if you ever have the opportunity to come to Fairmont Banff, literally green screen aesthetic. It is phenomenal. So thank you for sitting down with me. Yay. It's been so fun. And of course, anytime I get to hang out with my friends, my favorite. Heck yeah. So, okay, let's go party.
Flip side.